Alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sorry, just wanted to pass a scenario by you for application of this particular rule. This country, sometimes I'm walking on the road and suddenly somebody comes up to me and said, "Do you want a Rado watch?" Right? Now the Rado watch normally costs £500. He's selling it for £50.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the back of my mind, I know this is, what do they call it? Off the lorry, yeah? Off the back of the lorry. Is either a delivery person and is just siphoning some of the stock, selling it, making cash money. That's assumption. I mean, that's the explanation for selling something so expensive, so cheap.
Yeah.
But according to what we just discussed, he is Sahib al-Yad because it's in his car, he opens the car, he shows me, and he says, "I'm selling this for £50. To what extent do I have to be certain that it is not his? Do I have to ask for some kind of evidence, or can I assume that he is the owner and therefore buy it?"
Normally we don't question, but sometimes there are signs that raise doubt. For example, you see that it is sold in a very cheap price that you can never find in any shop or any place. And this is also a person who is not stationed, so you don't find him next day here. So when lots of doubt surrounds this, then it would be problematic. It's better to be avoided. Of course, we should check with Marja, but it's a great chance that Marja would say, if you have doubt, in this case, strong doubt, ihtiyat is that you don't buy from him. But if the difference is not that much, and especially if the person has a shop, a person, you see him every day, then you say this is not a thief, or
I had a question like, for instance, I find something in my house which I am sure that it's not mine. It's not as if I'm not sure or unsure, but I'm very sure it's not mine. But I do not know whom does it belong to. Maybe a guest, or maybe my child brought it from somewhere, or I don't know. And I find it like maybe I see it like someone was there at my place maybe 2 months ago, a month ago, a week ago. I don't know whose exactly it is. What's the ruling with that? An extension of this question is, if my child brings something home and she doesn't remember who does it belong to, what should I do for that particular thing?
If there is something in your home and you know it's not yours, if it belongs to a particular person, you give it to that person. If it belongs to a person that you don't know particularly, but it's one of few people. For example, the child has brought from his class. So it's a matter of 15, 20 people. We know that it's not outside that class, so we have to give them. Okay? But if you totally don't know, then it becomes like something that you find on the street. It's lokata. So if amount is more than certain amount, and you are totally hopeless, then you give sadaqah on behalf of that person, or you ask Wakil of Marja for permission. So you consider it as a lokat if you don't know at all.
I don't know the exact ayat of the Quran, and this might be a more aqaid question, but there's an ayat that talks about what your right hand possesses in reference to slaves.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether you can give me your view on whether that ayah you think is still applicable in this day and age, and to what extent that might be the case.
Yeah, that's issue of slavery. So Islam, first of all, restricted the ways someone may become a slave. So, because in the past, sometimes they used to attack people and then enslave them, things like this. And then encourage people to free slaves. Okay? So soon it stopped. Today, there is no way to have a slave unless, according to some fuqaha, there is jihad, and then if there is kafir harbi, then if they are taken as captive, might be taken as a slave, but not every faqih accepts that. But in normal situation, there is no way anyone will enslave anyone.
So I had a question which was similar to the previous question.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking regarding, if there's a possession in your house and you just say it's not mine, will the claimant come forward and advertise, for example, in the paper?
Yeah.
But no one has come forward, and there may be a time limit. If I set a time limit of 3 months, after which it can go in auction. So that's one part. The other question I've got is if you're a taxi driver, for example, and you see a wallet with a lot of money there, and you cannot identify, so do you return it to the authorities? What is the issue with that?
So you have to look for the owner by advertising, by giving to authority, whatever, till you become hopeless. If you have become despaired from finding, then that can be spent, but it depends on the amount. If it is less than certain amount, it's different. More than that amount, you have to give on behalf of that person, like sadaqah. And if you trust those authorities that they will, keep it safe and look for the owner, or when the owner goes, but then after, if the owner doesn't come, what are they going to do with that? Are they going to observe Sharia rule or not? Then there are certain issues here.
So what happens in that case when you doubt when the person you're returning to will exercise?
Then if you are allowed and doesn't, make a big problem, then you have to yourself make sure that you give it for sadaqah to the wakil. If not, then get permission. Say, I have to do, otherwise they sack me from this job, or something like this,
You cannot use it for yourself.
No, unless it is very little. The best thing is if you find on the street, you don't touch it. Because then you become responsible. But if it is in your car, then you cannot avoid it because it's in your car. But if it's on the street, it's better not to touch it.
With your permission, can we open the Q&A to any subject?
Sure.
Just an extension of the slavery question.
Yes.
I have a very good friend of mine who actually, anytime I need any advice when it comes to business or etc., he's somebody I would always go and tap into. He used to be a very devout Muslim, and one of the things he mentioned to me in one of our conversations about why he left the path of becoming a Muslim or being a Muslim, practicing Muslim, was the issue of slavery. Slavery in terms of, you mentioned how Islam restricted slavery in general. If you can just touch on that. And also there's another point he mentioned, which I have no knowledge to respond to either, was the relationship of the Prophet towards slaves as well. If you can touch on that, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. This is a topic that, alhamdulillah, we have also some essays and materials on it. First of all, this is not something that Islam started. This is something that existed before from many generations. This was there. But it was not always as negative as we think about it. Because the idea was that when, for example, there was a war and they had captive, they didn't have prisons or camps. They had either to kill them or they had to bring them to their own home and live with them like family members. Some people maybe treated them very nice, some people maybe mistreated them, but this can happen even to family members. Some people treat their wife or children well, or some people don't do this. But that was something that was common because they had no other option. If they wanted to kill people, that was even worse. Islam said every human being is free. No one has a right to enslave other people. But people were already slaves. So it couldn't all of a sudden, without having any authority, any government, from the first day that Rasulullah said all the slaves are free. Then they would, try to use this as a means to attack Islam and destroy Muslims more. So what Islam did, even many of Islamic rulings didn't come all at once. Many rulings were introduced in Medina, little by little, even not first year in Medina. So what Islam did, first made sure that there would be no new slaves. No one can, enslave people. Secondly, made lots of legal arrangements for becoming free. For example, if someone is owning a slave and then has a child from that slave, that child is freed. Then when the owner died, the child becomes the owner, then automatically the mother is free. There are lots of kafara that they had to free slaves. Lots of recommendation to free slaves. So, little by little, this started much earlier than even in the Western world. Slavery started much earlier than Western world. But when it comes to the way Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt treated slaves, they had best practice. They used to take some of these people, look after them, educate them, and free them. And many times they gave them farm, they gave them something they can live on their own. But we have stories that they didn't want to live. They said, we want to stay. This was maximum respect that they were receiving.
Some stories about the Prophet or being touted in some respect, which I don't know if have any credibility, but the Prophet having offspring with slaves.
So you could marry, like you can marry a free person, you could marry also, but there are conditions. But because we could not say they shouldn't be married, because they had also right to be married, to have children. But you have to always remember conditions, circumstances. Once I used this example, I said, for example, if 50 years ago, I, for example, took from here my family with a very, a slow and not comfortable car for ziyarah 50 years ago, it's a mashallah. Because other people had to go by horse, for example, or, walking. But he has taken with the car. But now, if with the same car I take my family, they say, you are, torturing them. They have to be, uncomfortable on these seats. And now you have to take them with the plane. So things can change. Something that in one time can be very normal, in another time can look not normal. If the dress that, for example, 2 generations ago they gave to their children, we give now to the children, maybe everyone looks at them, in a very bad way. It doesn't mean that those people did zulm. They didn't do zulm, because at that time that was the expectation. Now expectation has gone higher. Our problem is that we compare these 2 times together without considering the differences in expectations, in culture, in customs. Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikh, this is to do with the first lecture, if you don't mind. You were saying that the definition of a companion is slightly different in Sunni and Shia Islam. What's our belief about Uwais al-Qarni? Is he considered a companion? If it's true about how we actually meet.
He is not technically a companion, because he didn't meet Rasulullah. But maybe spiritually he is connected, but not technically, because he didn't have any meeting. He went to Medina, Rasulullah was not there. And then he had to return.
Any more burning questions? If not, we'll close inshallah. Sheikh, thank you very much. Let's finish with salawat ala
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.